everybody. Chris Gleason, Arts and Creativity Consultant with the Department of Public Instruction. And today we have a guest, and our guest is Amanda Leurquin, who is our theater arts lesson writer. Amanda, how you doing?
Doing great. It's exciting to be here. Thank you so much for having me so that I can talk about the lessons and stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you for writing the lesson. It's brilliant. And before we get into the lesson, though, let's talk about you. What do you do? Where do you work? And how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting and winding story, so I'll try to give the short version, I guess. The easy part is I've been at Marshfield High School for the past 12 years. I direct the fall play, and the spring musical, in addition to starting our new Thespies troupe just a couple years ago. We had our first international thespian competitors this year, which was really exciting for them since we were a brand new troupe out of the gate. But I host a New York trip every 2 years for the students, and we do a lot of the field trip stuff around the area to go to local plays, as well as bigger regional touring productions. I teach drama class here. I run an advanced drama program as well, which is kind of technical. So we actually have a drama class here, but I also teach English as well. And I work really hard to try and incorporate elements of theater in English. Prior to being here, and I should say I'm an alumni of the school, which was super exciting. I came in to kind of take over a program that I was afraid was going to disappear. That was so inspiring to me when I was in school here. I was an assistant director. I was barely on stage, but I love the behind the scenes stuff, and I still do. So I'm so honored that I can actually teach and bring that kind of creativity to the classroom. Prior to being here, I taught in Merrill for 4 years, 1 year at Loyal. And at all of those, I did the musical at Merrill as an extracurricular. And then at Loyal, my students did a one-act play there. And so that was where I kind of fell into directing, because theater was a different path. I got my master's in theater after I'd been already teaching it for a while. But it was great. I always think it's a way that however it finds you, it really doesn't matter. It's how we can bring that creativity and passion to the kids that is really important ultimately in the end.
Yeah, love that. So you have a little experience, and it shows up in your lesson. And here's what's unique about what I noticed is that for every grade band, it's really a kind of a unique take on this. Like, for example, in the K2, I noticed that you were really talking about specific lines of the poetry and then having kids create like puppetry. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate in the way that I have twins going into kindergarten this year. So I'm like in it in that way. Like I don't direct or teach usually that young age group, but I can imagine like what my twins would maybe, because boy, girl. So how they would like play and interact. And like, how would I approach reading a poem to them? That's where I like put myself in, like, if I was a teacher and if I was those kids, how would I even get to that? Because it's still very much English that's where I broke into theater. There are two realms of pedagogy that are very close to each other, literature and theater. So it's lovely to see it at a younger level. So how do you make it for them? Well, puppetry is a whole part where you can make it interactive, manipulative, still get their attention, and still incorporate that element of poetry in a beautiful, interconnected way, which is also what makes theater so wonderful, is how we can interconnect all of the different subject matter. And that's what I strive for, is to try and get that interconnectedness. And puppetry also doesn't have to just be those sock puppets. It's, those popsicle sticks and, a drawing or whatever. It's and letting the kids use media to create. There's so many ways that it can overlap with theater, because we oftentimes have to find those projects backstage and those pieces and critical thinking skills at work to figure out how to solve our problems. And that's how it kind of starts, is giving you the ability to creatively make those puppet pieces so that it'll represent the kid, but also still follow along with that theme of connection that the poem brings forth too.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, theater as an art form encompasses so many different disciplines and skills and techniques. I mean, so you have kind of almost a visual arts, K2, but now in 3-5, now we're talking movement. Now you're talking about setting a stage with props and movement. and you provide this great template along with it, kind of a handout. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So in the 3 to 5, so this is something new for me. I have started working with. I do a summer program with our local regional theater, just in the month of June. But it really brought me to the point where how excited the kids were to just throw out like costumes and things that they could come in and kind of come up with their own play on things. And that whole idea was to get the students to take ownership, obviously, and start getting them to develop their voices with movement and creativity as well. And so that's where the 3 through 5 one was, and how important it is to get the kids to move around too. And so that's where that lesson plan was coming in. Also, again, trying to make it that it was doable for teachers, but also getting the kids to really love the creative process and the creative spirit of being involved in whether it's the staging or the creating of things or even putting themselves out there too.
Yeah, I really can see the way that you scaffolded each of these. Like for 6-8
Yeah.
now, you're talking about a short scene. You're not saying like do the whole, but you even throw out kind of a cool thing in called alphabet improv. What is that?
Yeah. So Alphabet Improv was a game that I had played a version of it in class. And then I included a video of it because they had a wonderful video out there from one of our resources. I believe it was one of our education resources where they had actually taken it and incorporated it into a middle school classroom. And it didn't have to be necessarily just theater. It was another teacher who had also taught a subject matter, just like me. I feel this a lot. I use a lot of my brain breaks are just theater games, and I disguise them so they don't know that. So that alphabet improv game, it gets them thinking on their feet, to connect, and listen closely to what other people are saying to kind of build off of what they would bring to an activity using the letters of the alphabet. So yeah. So anyway, there's so many. There's also the emotional alphabet in there as well. Again, the video does a really good job of highlighting it. So I apologize if I'm not breaking it down, but it's really cool to see how the kids they can be so engaged and listening. I've played games like this before with students where they listen to the last letter and then they pick it up with the next letter, or making sure that what they say is that next letter of what they're going on a picnic and what they're bringing type thing. But it could be any kind of background. I'm going to the circus and I'm going to do this. And I could see how students can throw out a place and the information and just see the engagement light up, especially with middle schoolers. I do a summer school middle school program in the summer as well through the schools. And those kids have such enthusiasm. And my whole hope is that I can keep them having that fun of play and enjoyment, because we know it gets harder as we get older. Life just gets harder. We get a lot more insecure. We get a lot more anxieties. And the whole goal is to try and give them tools to make them feel more confident as they go into those tougher years.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love it. And the high school, you really talk about creating an original work, and
Yeah.
you really help build that within them. What's an important aspect of this as people read through that part of the lesson plan? What things should they pay attention to?
Yeah. So the one it was okay. So this is really interesting because it really encourages the students to think about movement and emotion and how can you express emotion through movement, which can be very hard for students to do. It also encourages them to kind of devise an original piece that's movement based. It's funny because movement is one of the first things I really try to bring into my drama classroom when I'm just teaching drama, which is true the general masses at my high school. You don't have to be in drama or theater after school to be in drama class. A lot of drama classes working on confidence building. And so one of the first things we do is learn to be confident in our body and how we express ourselves and our nonverbals. And then we also talk about the importance of, pauses, silence, reflection, and meditation. And all of that goes into incorporating how we might express, like a poem in this case. I had a little bit of reference. I had something similar, but it was all via virtual. And I just really loved it. I wish I could have been up in the moment, but taking a poem that was not a new poem, but an older poem, And when we did it virtually and with my classmates, virtually for my master's degree, it was really just neat just how we dissected the poem to start with. As an English teacher, it feels really cool to give kids a voice and to see that poetry can be interpreted differently, and then to add that layer of emotion and movement. So looking at lines, talking about our emotions, and then thinking about how would we express that emotion. It's just kind of a cool way to get the kids thinking outside the box, because we're so often, we don't know how to express ourselves. And movement is a really interesting outlet. And for some people, they'll be more expressive and they'll be bigger. And for others, they'll be quieter. And all of that is a different way of perceiving art, of course, too.
Yeah,
So,
that's really well articulated. So, this concept of connection and the poem itself, how has this like resonated with you personally?
so, oh gosh, when I opened the poem up, it touched me in so many ways. There was a lot going on for me, with, and everybody has a story, I think, with somebody personally that's touched by cancer and stuff. My brother is undergoing a lot of chemo and tumor treatment and stuff. And I looked at that and I saw the yellow bird part being so hopeful. And it's kind of bringing tears to my eye. I don't normally tear up, but it's been a tough couple years, and to look at yellow birds in the morning, it made me be really reflective on being present. When you wake up in the morning, just realizing what the day can bring and how it builds upon a person. And what was really cool is then we had, and help me with this, the image's name that we received for the painting, the acrylic painting. Was it, I'm trying to remember
Sketches.
so the acrylic painting that we had then, it was also so inspiring too when we were looking at that too, and I worked that into my stagecraft lesson plan, I have to say, because I just felt like that was very special too. But I love with poetry that everybody can interpret it differently. But I just felt with this poem, that idea of connection brought me to my family. And it brought me back to that importance that every day you could make count in a different way. And sometimes it's a quieter start, and other days we're fully vocalizing, we're fully excited, we've become a bigger, better person. Yeah, it was really inspiring in that way. And yeah, it just felt like a really nice fit for me. And I hope others feel the same way too.
And that's the goal, is the one, like you kind of said, to talk about the through line for all of our arts. Are we're all connected,
Mhm.
but also this concept of connection, obviously, which is really needed in our world and with our future learners. One more question though, speaking of which, what is the value of theater arts education? Like, why bother, right? It should just be an after school activity, right? So what's the point?
So I got a great one. Because I had a lot of soul searching at the end of last year with the rise of AI. It's scary in the classroom. And as an arts educator, it can be so easy to have AI create something very quickly. And as somebody who cares about the written language as well. But theater too is like, how is this going to change the world that we're in? I mean, we had a musical win the Tony Award that's about, robots. They're humans acting as robots, which is totally trippy too. But I mean, so where does it all? So I come back to theater. The one thing that AI, and I'm almost 100% certain now that I've become more familiar with where it is now, it will never be able to take away the humanistic qualities. It's never going to be at the point where we can effectively communicate and connect with people better than a human can. So the only way students, in my opinion, are going to be able to make themselves more marketable in the future, because we are losing jobs in some of these fields so quickly to AI. The only way we're going to be marketable is that we continue to connect with our emotional integrity, our human side, our compassion. And these are all things that the theater is really good at, and the theater is a master at. While we might not all have kids or students who go into theater down the line, they are creating better doctors, better scientists, better dentists, better, these people who have more humanistic skills, that are better communicators, and they'll be more successful as a result, more compassionate as a result. And so I don't know, I come back to these skills. They may not be tested on a standardized test, But I will tell you, the true testament is how we treat one another. And they will stand out above and beyond by their level of empathy and care when it comes to getting hired for a job. So, yeah.
That was well said. Well said. Here, here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for this time, and thank you for the brilliant concept and the lesson plans. I'm sure many of us are going to take advantage of those. So have a great school year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.